Hey, everybody. I'm going to start with you, Dutch. Give me some good advice on dealing with alerts in the SOC.
Some good advice on dealing with alerts in the SOC. Get your team out of the SOC and talk about ways that you can um, figure out a better way to cross pollinate it across the team. Because what I've seen is sometimes people get it's. I'm always the person who's the naysayer. I'm always the person who kind of looks at this type of threat or this type of activity. So I love getting people out, right? Whatever that is, if you can physically get them out, but get them out even mentally and just change them up, almost like different roles, but even just to do it for an hour, right? And get people out of those roles, right? I think
It's
that's a
like
great way.
getting people,
Yeah.
it's like getting the executives at McDonald's to actually work at the McDonald's. Ah,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
Russ.
Hey,
Russ
Russ.
made it. Are you there, Russ? Hold on, wait, put on your on.
Now, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Hello?
don't know if anyone understands, but Russ is caught up in a storm right now. And Dutch
Not
has
figurative.
jumped in for him. But I'm going to ask Russ, I'm going to ask, hold on, I'm going to go to you, Atai. Atai, give me some bad advice on dealing with alerts.
Bad advice. Look only at high severity alerts and sweep everything else under the rug.
Ooh, that is some really good bad advice. All right, Russ, I'm going to come to you. Give me worse advice than what Atai just said.
Oh, worse advice. Okay. I would say try to get everything you possibly can to send you an alert. So try to get as many alerts as possible.
Oh, that is some good bad advice. All right, let's start
Get
the show.
ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
All right, welcome everybody to Super Cyber Friday. My name is David Spark. Today's topic is hacking alerts, and well, you don't know what was happening behind the scenes here moments ago, but Russ, that was a Herculean effort to get onto this show, and Dutch has been here. We're going to have Dutch hold on and stay with us for a few minutes while you're on with us, and then Dutch has been a phenomenal backup here for you. But our topic today is hacking alerts and our critical thinking about triaging the deluge hitting your sock. Our guest today, our guest today, if this thing is going to work on me, Russ Ayers, who you just saw appear. He's the deputy CISO and head of cyber over at Equifax, and Atai Tevitt, who is the CEO over at Intezer. All right, our sponsor for today is Intezer. They are responsible for all the wonderful stuff we're going to see today. So thank you so much, Intezer. All right, lots of different ways to participate. Those of you know who have come and joined us before, you know what this is all about. We have bad ideas, how not to handle alerts, and a 10% better, how to improve triaging alerts. So we want your 10% better tips and with your bad ideas, just remember to label it bad idea or 10% so we know which one it is, because sometimes we're confused as to which are the good and the bad ideas. All right, today's schedule, you got it. Good advice, bad advice, worse advice, how not to handle alerts, how to improve triaging alerts. We will play the public interest. And since we're talking about alerts, we're going to play That Totally Sucks. Then we're going to have our meetup at the end of the hour. But at 45 minutes past the hour, we're going to ask you if you have any questions for our meetup. If you have not come to our meetup at the end of the hour, stick around for that. It's fun. You need to have a Discord account, so make sure you have a Discord account to do just that. We'll have our last questions and final advice. Then we will actually do our meetup. Next week, our show is Hacking Job Stagnation, an hour of critical thinking about what to do when you're stuck in a rut. There is a link to register for just that at the bottom of the screen. If you have advice for people stuck in a rut or you are stuck in a rut, guess what? We want you there. My guess is you're one of the two, because we've all been stuck in a rut at one point, I feel. I know I have. All right. The link to do that is at the bottom of the screen. Please click on that at any time. You will not be taken out of this discussion. All right, Russ, since you made it here, you get the first question. And that is, I'm just going to basically ask you, what are the biggest challenges facing the SOC today?
Yeah, I think for most of the organizations, we're included in this, obviously, but most of the troubles that we see is this deluge of alert fatigue that we talked about earlier. We said, hey, you send me a ton of alerts. We get new technologies that are showing up all the time. You build some detections in some way. You scope that to exactly the false positive rate that you want. You get everybody involved. You set all the parameters that should be set for getting it through the rest of your triage process. And then you get a new technology, you get a new thing, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one. You've got a ton of false positives. Everybody's overloaded again. All your detection times go off the charts. And then some jerk like me comes in and goes, hey, what's up with all your detection time frames? We were doing great. And all of a sudden, we're behind the eight ball. So for me, the way that I look at that is you have the personnel problem, which is people are going to be in this false positive circle, and we got to help them get out of that. So being aware of the technologies earlier, super helpful. In our case, maybe we would set up something that's like a sandbox or something you're going to do to practice with, say, a cloud vendor or say with a SaaS vendor. Try to get a sense of what's coming, get a better sense of what the traffic is going to be, and then prep for that. But then I think it's almost as important to talk to the teams that are doing that and say, what methods do we have for decomposing this? Let's say it's going to happen. And that's more of the strategy that we're following now. Let's assume there is an unknown thing that's going to hit you. Let's just build the process so that it is ready for an alert that you haven't recognized. Then let's define some best practices and some SMEs that you could go to that you would try to resolve. Have you seen this before? Do you know what this is? What is this tech? Where is it coming from? And I think those are the two sides of the coin that we have to focus the most on. If we defined every single thing that we knew was going to happen, that would be fantastic. It just doesn't work out that way. And then if we don't build the system to handle what those unknowns are that show up, then I think you're sort of building people into this false sense of security mindset that's just not going to help you when you're running a modern SOC.
Very good advice. All right, Dutch, I'm going to ask you the very same question, and we're going to drop you off. I want to know your advice here. What do you think are the biggest challenges with the SOC?
Yeah, I think I'll agree with Russ and just pull out two of the things he said. So in one, kind of tying back to stagnation. So one is burnout, right? So how do you, right? In the same way, if you're in another highly critical job, you're a air traffic controller, right? There are more flexible ways in other domains to rotate people through. So if I pull from the military, right, when you're on standby, we have different levels of that, right? And so I would love to see more consistently rotation through in and out of the SOC, even if it's just for a day or two, to give people some decompression time. So that, to me, the burnout that I see is a real issue. And the second thing that Russ just mentioned is you cannot plan for a black swan. Right. So there's a cognitive bias around that. And so instead of planning for, this specific type of attack vector came in and ABC happened, which is a thing you should do, but you should also say, bad thing happened. Don't even worry about why it happened. Right. What's the resiliency for these different types of either data categories or criticalities or what have you, right, from an internal standpoint. But occasionally you have to flip that script and say, let's not fixate on how it got here, why it got here, it doesn't matter. This thing happened, go. Like, what's our resiliency to recover from that?
All right. Very, very good advice. So I'm going to just highlight some of the bad ideas that have just popped up here. And a lot of them are variations of just randomly pick one. Itay, these bad ideas I don't think are too far off of what often happens in the SOC. Like, don't you have to, at a certain point, just pick one? Yes?
Yeah, I think definitely not too far away from what we see, except the spin the wheel idea. Very creative. That's definitely a new.
So let's go back to and quick answer, and then we want to get into the details of this. Of what do you think? Because I mean, you started a company to deal with alerts. Maybe tell me, like, what was the big wake up call that this needs to happen for you?
Yeah, so I mean, it all started from my previous job. Actually, I used to lead an incident response and SOC team, and I had something that everybody could relate to. I had a big problem, which I had way too many security alerts, too much work, and not enough people on my team. So that kind of sparked the idea to create Intezer. And, from the very beginning, we set ourselves a very difficult mission, which was to solve the talent shortage problem in cyber, which I know is a very ambitious goal to have, but this is definitely what we're aiming for.
But honestly, what you just said there, Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, that is everyone's situation. Too many alerts, not enough staff to manage it. I don't know of any situation that is not exactly that. Is it? I mean, that's got to be it.
No, I think we all have that problem. If you talk to anybody in the industry, I'm not aware of anyone that says, the one thing I've got more than I need are talented cyber professionals, right? That never happens. And if it does, we're probably taking them to some type of psychiatric evaluation, right? So I think it's a struggle that we have for multiple reasons. One, there's not enough talent. But then I think what we were just talking about for what Intezer does is if you flipped it the other way, yes, one thing to say is we don't have enough people to handle those alerts. But then you could flip it a little and say, well, then we're probably getting too many alerts is another option, right? So it's not always just we don't have enough people. It's we're sending too much signal full of too much noise to those people. If you were able to target only the one alert that you need to work on to a single individual, you get 1,000 times more effort out of that person than if you send them 1,000 things they have to look at. So there are two sides of the equation.
So let's get into the alerts that have been investigated. You realize they are essentially maybe not false positives, but they just don't lead to anything. And what are the trademarks of an alert that doesn't lead to anything, Itay? Like this was wasted time. This didn't need to be investigated. What is this is there a history of what the trademarks of those kind of alerts?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great question. So from our entire customer base, I think that there are two things that kind of repeat themselves in terms of the type of alerts that we call is like chasing ghosts. I think that the most common two types of alerts that we hear about are impossible travel, like that when it's like you're in Sri Lanka and then in the United States in just a 15-minute span. This is a huge issue for a lot of SOC teams, and 99% is usually false positive. And the other type that we hear constantly is about reported phishing emails from employees. So this is something that I don't think every company has, but usually bigger companies have this button for each employee to report, hey, this is a real fish, and it got to my inbox. Again, 99% of it is probably just spam and not a cyber attack. But then the SOC still needs to deal with it. So yeah, these are the two things that I see as common across the board.
What about, I'm going to ask you the same question. Anything to add to what Itay just said, Russ?
Well, I think, if you go back to signal or source signals that you're getting from a device, in some cases, a connection attempt, I get this on network devices, right? The attempt to establish a network connection doesn't mean an attack, but the network device doesn't necessarily know that. And so I'd group these into appropriate for the device, inappropriate for an attack. And so I think you get a lot of machine level insight. Cloud logs are a great example where you're going to get a ton of information about, hey, something tried to access the file system, something tried to make a connection to this port. Those just in context of the regular working of a web server, app server, or the rest are fine, but you've got to have something over the top of that. And if we're thinking of it in terms of network layers, it's almost like we need a layer 12, right? Which is like, okay, we'll look at that impossible travel situation, look at whether or not that was an actual spam piece of content, look at what the interaction is that the user's doing. Does this look like an attack? And we really don't have a lot of things that do that. And so it's these varying levels of detail. And the piece at the bottom doesn't know what the piece at the above it is going to be able to discern. And so they err, as they should, on sending an alert, right? Or sending a log. It's just that we don't have great correlation devices at the moment. We have some, don't get me wrong. It's just we don't have a way to look through all of those signals just yet. And discern bad from
But
good.
that is a trend that's coming, don't you think? Both of you, Ty, you're nodding your head. That's very much a trend coming.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Russ said. Today, the correlating device is humans.
That's right.
I mean, this a lot of the SOC work is to kind of see the bigger picture and get some additional evidence probably, and then make a decision, right? And this type of decision making is usually very complex, especially complicated to automate.
And when you go to, now let's say we're going to go to Runbook. So you're going to try to make sure you compensate for the problem you have in staffing, where you've got to train people up through that process. So you're going to get people that are more junior, and then you're going to train them up, give them the growth potential we talked about, give them a good career path. Great. Now you say, oh, by the way, we're going to use you for very complex problems. So great, also good. No, human is interested. Sounds awesome. Human is super interested about the first 3,000 times that happens. And then sometime around 3001, they're going to start missing pieces because they're going to try to shortcut. And as they shortcut, they miss some particular connection. So I think there's an added dimension here as well, that long term, we can't be in a situation where we use that. And I agree 100% with the fact that the human is actually the corollary there, or the correlator. But we can't use that for those 3001 time, because the performance will degrade over time.
All right, we have our first game.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
All right, here's the game. It's going to make perfect sense to you as soon as you see this first slide. Most average monthly search queries. So the question is, what gets more search queries? And this is not just cybersecurity professionals, anybody who's searching on the interwebs, specifically Google. This is where this comes from. So what do you think gets more search queries, false alarm or false positive? And by the way, I did not produce this, so I'm going to play along too, because I don't know the answer. But Ty, I'm going to have you guess first.
Although it's our world and probably a bubble, but I will still say false positive.
Okay, false positive. He's going with false positive. Where are you, Russ?
And I just think it's a trick now, because of course it would be false positive. So I'm just going to say false alarm, just because it's a trick.
By the way, everyone is shocked in this game. I'm going false alarm too, because I think that's what it is. But let's see what the correct answer is. The correct answer is false positive. Ty. All right. Ty is in the lead right now. All right. There's only 4 questions here. And as I have always pointed out, it's extraordinarily difficult to get all 4 correct. Most average monthly search queries, communication or management? What do you think gets more searches? I'll start and I'll say communication.
Yeah, I would say communication.
I'm going with D, management.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see. Maybe follow the same trend. Will Ty take it? Ty takes it again. Ooh. Pretty slim margin
Close.
there.
Right. Yeah.
All right. 2 for 2. You're doing very well, Ty. I'm quite impressed.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Event, incident, or notification? This is a tough one. Because event could mean a lot of different things here.
Yeah.
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 I would say
I'm
event.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Definitely.
I should have just waited until he answered, and then I could have seen whether I just follow along with that. That's what I should have done.
I'm going incident on this one. We're going to see. Here we go.
Ooh.
The answer is event by a good margin there over notification for that matter. All right. Ty, you could in this next one, because you're 3 for 3, you could join a very elite group of people who've gone 4 for 4 in this game, of which I think there's maybe 2 that have done it. So that's how tough this game is. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to let you answer first on this one. Escalation, mitigation, or oversight. Will you go 4 for 4?
Wow. Tough one. I'm going to go with mitigation.
Mitigation. All right. Where are you going, Russ?
Yeah, so if I do the, so I'm going to do the math here. Mitigation makes the most sense to me. And then I'll just say that if we get tricked, then it would be escalation, because that's not what I would expect. So mitigation is what I would go with as well.
I definitely don't think it's oversight. I feel confident that's the lowest one. I'm going to go with.
Well, that means that's what it is then.
Yeah, well, I feel confident, but I'm going to go with the tie here because I think he's going to be a he's going to be a 4-time winner here. Let's see. I'm going I, mitigation, and the correct answer is. It is mitigation.
Oh,
The tie does it.
Wow.
4 for 4. I am very, very, very
Awesome.
impressed. Hold on.
Awesome.
We've got a winner.
Good job, Ty. And then I want to see.
What's his prize? What does he get?
Was the prize?
Yeah, what is
Thank
he?
you,
What,
Russ.
what are you
We're all
going to send
impressed
him?
is
Yeah.
what
Yeah, okay.
I was embarrassed to ask. Thank you, Russ.
we're all impressed. All right, we've been talking about alerts, and I'm gonna ask you, Ty, to specifically tell us what you're doing at Intezer with regards to managing alerts and how you sort of been dealing with. And by the way, you kind of set it up before. Most great startup stories start with, "I was working a job. This happened." This was happening. There wasn't a good solution. So I started, sometimes they create it at their job and then they break out and say, realize more people could do it. Is this something you created at your job and then you developed it as a full product, or no, you didn't? You just left and started creating it.
Yeah, officially.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
So explain
Yeah.
to me
Yeah.
what you're doing over at officially. There you go. Good answer. Yes. With this is not a courtroom, but it is being recorded. All right.
Yeah, that's right. It's a brand new laptop. Went to Best Buy, bought it. You know.
All right. Itai, explain to everybody what you guys are doing over at Intezer.
Yeah, of course. So we basically use AI and other technologies to emulate how human analysts investigate alerts. So basically, we integrate with your existing security stack like endpoint, SIEM, email, monitor all the alerts that are coming from there, investigate them automatically, and then escalate only 4% of alerts back to your team. So it's really like having more people on your SOC team covering your alerts for you.
Explain to me, what is the triage element that you're doing automatically before a human sees it?
Yeah, so basically the same thing that you would expect from an excellent tier 1 SOC analyst to do for you, which is, look at the alert, understand what it is, collect all related evidence that is associated with the alert, analyze each and every piece of evidence, correlate with other sources, as Russ mentioned before in his example, and then make the bottom line decision, which is, hey, is it a false positive, true positive? What kind of threat is it? What do we recommend to do next? Really what you would expect from an excellent tier 1 team member to do.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. So if you want to see how they're actually triaging alerts over in Intezer, and you would like a warm handoff to them, because that is something we will do here at CISO Series for you, the audience, I'm at this very moment, we have just put a poll up. And just go ahead and answer on the poll, and we will make that handoff for you. So thank you very much for that tidbit. Also, if you have not registered for next week's Super Cyber Friday, please go ahead and do that right now. All right. Oh, we've got questions in. Let's go to the questions from our audience. Oh, our audience, these are not questions. These are people accidentally answering our poll before. Oh, no, one of them. Do you mean attack pass by correlation? So I think this is from, who is this? I don't even know who answered this. It just says hello. All right. I don't. So let's go to let's move on. Let's go to my own questions. By the way, get your questions in, everybody. I didn't mention that. The little question mark on the right. Go ahead and get your questions in. All right. Let's just start with the highest level of success. I'll start with you, Russ, on this one. What has been the highest level of success you see in terms of automating alerts, like triaging these alerts? Like, I'm so glad we're doing this now because it's lifted this pain off of our back. So low level, what's been working the best?
Yeah, so, and I would say a couple of different things. Number one would be actually walk through the path of the attack that you can control. Some people will call this purple teaming. Other people would call it red teaming while blue team sits. Other people would call it blue team while red team sits, whatever. And to me, that is what caused us to identify what are the things that we would want to drop in terms of signal, what would we want to amplify, and getting the teams together to say, okay, well, here's a piece of malware, it's being dropped. What is lighting up in our systems, and then what do we really care about? What's the first signal that occurs? Because not everything happens at the same time. Sometimes there's a delay between one system and the other. So I would say measuring that part of the process is actually what gets you the biggest benefit, because it will apply in all situations. You'll be able to change it over time, and then you can go in and start tuning whatever it is that is generating false positives. Now, what resolves most of those? Probably the biggest bucket I would say you could start off with are the duplicates, because in the event that you have something, FIM is probably the one that everybody understands, just because it seems like it's universally noisy. It's very squeaky, the old FIM wheel. And so if you think about that, knowing that a file is going to change and you get 55 different states of that file changing, the real act is, was the file the same as it was before? No, it's not. Okay, well, then everything that comes after that. So you pin on the point you need to correct, and then you group or aggregate all of the other alerts together. That's probably going to be the biggest bang for the buck, because you don't have to go through and build a lot of the AI that we talked about a second ago. You don't have to build a lot of the heuristics. You know that there's a starting point and an ending point, and you can collapse everything that's in between. It's also usually single sourced, so you don't have to try to do it across multiple correlating points, which again is more of a human to do. But if you can pick up duplicate alerts that occur within the same tooling, your endpoint detection agents or your WAF or anything else, correlate those and aggregate, that's probably the simplest, quickest, largest drop you'll see in alerts.
Very good tip. Itai, there are actually some specific questions about the AI on a tester. So this one first comes from Zach. Is the AI trained on specific security stacks? How is it going to understand the unique environment from its default training? Good question from Zach M. What's your answer?
Awesome question. So basically, if we try to really mimic how human security analysts work and make decisions and investigate alerts, there's always both the global best practices on how an expert security professional needs to investigate alerts, and then there's the organizational context. So we had to build something that combines the two, right? Really define what are the best practices in order to investigate, let's say, an alert from CrowdStrike or SentinelOne about a suspicious activity from a machine, for example. There are best practices, but then also another model that takes into account the organizational context. So obviously we won't have enough time to dig into the very specifics, but as a high-level answer, I hope that makes sense.
Okay, and then this just quickly, Dutch asked this question. Itai, when you say AI, do you mean machine learning heuristics or generative AI? What are you referring to?
Oh, good. Yeah, good question. AI is such a big word.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, when I didn't have any gray hair, AI meant the in a video game how well the computer did, right? But really, I think it's best to break down AI to two main things. One is LLMs, like large language models, like we see from ChatGPT and the likings, and then deep learning, and other AI models that are not necessarily built on text. So the way that we combine both. LLMs are fantastic at analyzing any text-based evidence, anything that has text in it, a command line, a script, a log. This is fantastic to analyze text. But then you have types of information that is not textual, right? Whether it's a software or anything else. And also the decision-making process. This is why we use private AI models or more, deep learning type of technologies.
And then there's a question actually for you, Russ, here from Kartik, who says, when you're referring to the attack paths in your response before, do you mean attack path by correlation as attack paths to aggregate to chain vulnerabilities P5 to P1?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I do not mean that. You should definitely be aware of the path. And the only reason that I don't mean that is because in some ways, the path will be present to you when you do the attack. I think you're going to find that there are elements of your stack that don't work the way you thought they did. At least that's been the case for us. And certainly the peers that I walk through this with, or we talk with other folks in the industry, this is what they see as well. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Don't, for the love of all that you deem holy, please don't like run to these folks and tell them that we were saying bad things about them. But I think what you're going to find is, if you look at things like a CSPM tool, a CSPM tool is going to tell you things about misconfigurations, let's say. And then, you're going to have this weird state. And I'm sure this is something that Intezer deals with all the time, where what detects the configuration mismatch versus what is a vulnerability that's available. And then if somebody's trying to compromise the vulnerability, do they get the same signal coming from a compromised config? And it's not well defined. Then when you find out the part that you're using for a proxy, let's say a CASB or something internally, you may find that when you drop this malware on a misconfigured endpoint, or you've got an unencrypted storage bucket, what you think is going to happen is you're going to get three signals. You think you're going to get a signal from the drop of the malware, and whether or not you had an endpoint device or not. You're probably going to think you get a cloud log, and you're probably going to think that you get something from your CASB. Well, what if you don't get those? Your attack path, what you had designed, may not actually materialize in reality. And so I think you've got to walk through that path by just drop the piece of malware on a place that you think should generate 3 alerts, go back and count and see if you got 3 alerts. And then my guess will be you'll find situations that you've depended on that likely don't work like you suspected.
I want to call out some of the bad ideas that I've seen come in here. Kyra, my apologies, not pronouncing your first name correctly. Kira. Wojak said, crowdsource it. We've gotten versions of this one before, but this seems so appropriate. Invite the general public to review all your alerts. Here you go. And vote on the most serious ones, then evaluate the most upvoted ones and forget about the rest.
There we go.
Many heads are better than just a couple, right?
Love it.
It's like Reddit for SOC.
Reddit for SOC.
There we
you go.
That's a soundbite.
That's a new company that's ready to launch. And
he's going to launch another one right
giving
there.
it to our audience right now.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Trademark and copyright.
Says Rich Stroffolino.
I gotta write it down, and maybe we'll consider it.
That's right.
By the way, today, is our last day of our AMA, our Reddit AMA. I'm about launching a Greenfield program. So if you want to get in on that, jump in. It's on the top of the cybersecurity subreddit as well. All right, what are we time? We're in good shape. We're 6 minutes away from our next game. But let me also call out. And by the way, again, this is Dutch Schwartz written all over it, and it is Dutch Schwartz. Hire French Mime. They act out all critical alerts, and the team has to guess the attack vector. They're in an invisible box. Does that mean ransomware? Yeah. Well,
Nice.
you can be attacked and be annoyed all at the same time. Look at that.
Yeah, coming against the wind for me in the storm at this point, so that would be good.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Good job, Dutch.
The French Mime is not that bad an idea. And by the way, for all the good ideas, we got them all from James Sparenberg. Did we get any from anybody but James Sparenberg? But I like 2 of these. He said, and these are good ones. Don't notify on every alert. If an action doesn't exist, no need to wake somebody up. And then he has another button, nope, not waking somebody up. Spend some time figuring out what is going on before you start waking up. Let me ask both of you. Have you gotten woken up for an alert that you did not need to be woken up for? Ever?
100%.
You have?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
What was the time and what was the alert that you did not need to be woken up for?
Ooh. This is probably some of the most confidential things I should not say on a podcast. But
That's what I was thinking.
in my previous job, my work was mostly to handle nation-sponsored attacks.
Mhm.
So, every alert could potentially be something big. So, yeah, that happened many times.
And then there were a lot of, this is nothing. I'm going back to sleep. Was there a lot of
Oh,
that?
yeah. Yeah, one time there was a huge incident that was caused just by actually the antivirus. So think the CrowdStrike incident from recently, I think 6 years ago, different vendor, was a disaster.
But it was not an attack. It was just bad software
No.
that acted up.
Yeah, it completely shut down all computers everywhere, and they were absolutely sure it's a cyber attack, and it was just a bad
Essentially
update
shooting yourself in the
package.
foot.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Have
Yeah.
Russ, your story?
Yeah, and I definitely had one, not in this case, because I'm definitely not going to talk about any that I shouldn't have been. I should always be awakened for anything that's important. But in the past, we did have an incident where it was another attack, just as we were going through there. Took us a while to find it, but we had microwave communications between, this was when I worked for a defense contractor, and we had microwave communications between these two locales, and we were sure that the bad guys had gotten in and made a mess. It took us about 3 hours to find. Spider had definitely built a web over the aperture of the microwave transmitter. We all joked about, Spider-Man after that, like whoever got near that spider was gonna get it. But it was spotty, right? So every now and then it would just go out. And it was because it was going back into the center of the web. So every now and then it would run and catch something and then go back in the center. And when it went in the center, it wouldn't work. So we had a literal bug, an actual physical bug.
Well, that is the history of the term bug, isn't it? Like a bug actually got into a bulb of some sort. Yeah, and that's how we have bugs today. All right. Well, good stories, everybody. And by the way, I see Ross Young join us. Thank you, Ross, for joining in. All right. So let's get into how does your environment change? And Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, you actually use Intezer's product, yes?
Yes, that's right. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. So I want to know from you, what has changed in your environment since you started using this? Like, what are you doing differently that is improving situation? Just sort of walk us through sort of the dynamic result of the working with this in your SOC.
Yeah, so most of the situations I was describing where we're trying to identify how many of these are real alerts or not, that process and the flow that that we were going through, that's really the way I would say for everybody doing anything is you start off with, and you can do it in 100 different ways, but I think the best way to do it is look at how many of those false positives that you get. You're probably going to have one team that's helping you do your detections. You probably have another team that's doing the review of those alerts and escalating. And then you may have another team that's handling the escalations. So you might have 3 teams that are doing this work. In the event that you have a vendor that can do this, you would get those 3 teams together. You would identify however many of these false positives are there. You could do that by just saying, look at all of the alerts in the beginning, or you could identify which alert is the most significant or points you to an escalation or points you to where the issue is. And then you start trying to tune those out. Well, that part of the process, and I think he gave us a great example of that for Intezer, just coming out of the box and saying, we can collapse these already. But if you understand what part of that process is, then you understand what the value of the tool is. I almost would say you need to do it anyway, sort of raw, see how many of the false positives were there, and then see what happens when you turn it off. We did it sort of in the opposite direction. We knew how many there were before we started using it. But even in the case where you use it, you're going to get other feedback from other tools that are going to say, hey, do you want me to turn the noise on this down? FIM, again, would be a great example. Maybe you could ask the FIM tool to do something different. Okay, well, now Intezer may be doing something similar. And so you're just having to talk with the vendor and talk with the person who's doing the endpoint detection in this case, or FIM, and then work through how many of the false positives you want. Because where I would say it's better to have a vendor you can talk to like that, is because they're going to have seen this a lot. You may be thinking this is a false positive, and they probably have seen situations where it was a true positive. And then that's the part that you've got to be very careful about. Don't false positive your way out of a true positive. You've really got to be sure that when it's really a problem, you know that you're targeting that specific problem. And so that's a case where having a vendor like that's useful, because they can give you insight into where this is seen in other instances. You won't really have that in your environment usually.
All right. Very, very good tip. I am now getting us ready for our next game. And here we go.
Oh no, that totally sucks.
All right. This is how this game's played. You see 12 essentially curtains behind there. Behind 11 of those curtains are crappy situations you do not want in your environment. One of them is actually good. What's going to happen is the two of you are going to pick one after another from this. And then, Russ, you're going to pick 4 items. Ty, you're only going to pick 3. And the reason you're only picking 3 is how well you did in our game beforehand. So, Russ, you have to pick an extra one. And then afterwards, once you've picked them and we see what your environment is, the audience is going to vote whose environment is worse. All right? Who has the crappier environment? So, I'm going to start with you, Russ. Pick any number 1 through 12.
Okay, I'm going 10.
Number 10. Whoops. And that is you right out of the gate, you got the good one. Successful ransomware attack thwarted, and you publish your technique. Good job. No one's done that before. So right now, Itay, I hate to break it to you, it's all crappy going on, but varying degrees of it. So Itay, pick one.
Let's do 7.
Number 7. Here we go. Oh, your SOC hasn't seen any alerts in the past 24 hours. How is that even possible?
It's a fantastic
That's
program
great.
you're running in time. Very good.
It could be that Intether is so damn good. My guess is it's not that good that can hold off alerts for 24 hours. Anyways, I've just marked you with the color red. So you are the red box, and Russ, you are blue. Russ, pick another one.
I'll do number 1.
Number 1. The employees took bribes to install remote access software. Well, that's not going to be good. That's definitely not going to be good. Itay, you pick.
I mean, how much was the bribe, though? Just, I'm saying.
Oh. If you can completely get out of here and get onto an island, then it's totally fine.
Yeah.
All right, Itay.
3.
Number 3. Your SSO service announces a breach. Also not good. All right. So now this is, even though you have something that's very good, it's not looking too good either one case here. All right. All right, Russ, you pick another one.
6.
Number 6. Your traveling employee brings her phone to a local repair shop and provides login credentials. Ouch.
Yeah, that's not
All right,
awesome.
Itay, this is your last one.
11. Let's do a row.
Okay, let's go. 11. Your staff forgets everything they learned in security awareness training. So you know what? That is not going to help out at all. All right, Russ, you got to pick one more, and then we're going to throw on
that
the
is very
poll.
common.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Very common.
Let's go 4.
Let's go with 4. Your MSSP suffers an outage, and you're without monitoring for 24 hours, which is kind of similar to this one.
Kinda
They haven't
similar,
seen
yeah.
one, so it's
right.
almost identical here.
That's right.
All right. All right, let's put up the poll. The poll, remember, you're voting who has the crappier situation. And let's review, is the poll, who has the worst environment? Yes, the poll is visible. I need you to start voting. All right, Russ is blue. Employees took bribes to install remote access software. Not good. Traveling employee brings their phone to a local repair shop and provides login credentials. And your MSSP is without monitoring for 24 hours. But Russ did successfully thwart a ransomware attack, and you published your technique, so you got a lot of kudos from the community on that one. All right. Now, Itay, on the other hand, your SSO service announces a breach. The SOC hasn't seen any alerts in past 24 hours. I'm saying that one and the MSSP, they kind of cancel each other out there. But the staff forgets everything they learned in security awareness training. I don't know, Russ. although Atai's getting more votes, I am seeing Russ as kind of a crappier situation. But again, whose environment is worse? There's only a handful of you voting. I'm going to give a 10-second countdown before I'm closing out the voting, so I need you to get in and vote. 10, 9, 8, 7, get in there and vote. 6, remember, click on the little link on the right. There's a little bar chart that has little lines on it. That's where it is. 5, 4, get your votes in. Oh, Russ, you're coming in. 3, 2, you don't want to win this, though, Atai, and it looks like you're going to win. 1, 0. Atai wins. Good job, although it was very close. This was actually quite close.
Oh, no. Now it's okay. Wow, look at that. They came in after the wire, though, so.
No. Atai, you won here. By the way, there is another poll up there. While you're voting that poll, if you'd like a warm handoff to Intezza and what they're doing and what the awesome stuff they're getting over at Equifax, some more people would like a warm handoff as well. So that is great. Here, let me turn off the That Totally Sucks game. Good job, Atai, for, quote, winning That Totally Sucks. He didn't really want to do that. All right.
All the presents he didn't want.
Register for Hacking Job Stagnation at the bottom of the screen. And also, let me use this time. Again, get your bad ideas in. There is a prize that we announce next week. And if you don't already have one of those awesome CISO Series jackets, you could win one of those. So please. I don't vote on it. I have a team of CISOs who determine on the best bad ideas. So go ahead and get that ready. And then also, if there's anything you would like to talk about in the meetup afterwards, type the word meetup : and whatever it is, and we will bring it up at our meetup afterwards. The link at the bottom will change to that. But remember, go ahead and register for Hacking Job Stagnation now. All right. I did see a question came in from Aman Sood, and I like this question. I'm going to ask Russ, I'm going to ask you this one first. If you could change one thing about the way your SOC/platform operates, what would it be and why? What is the one thing you'd like to change?
One thing I would want to change. I mean, so I'll do it in terms of a vision for how we would get consistency in monitoring. I think we were even going over something today that reminds me of this. I would like to see a single log format. Just the format for logs. That's what I would want to see. Now, there are plenty of solutions to getting
Can I ask, are
Yeah.
data lakes slightly addressing this issue? Because this is something that's come up. Not at all? No.
Not to me, and only because if you remember our previous discussions, right? So I like to start from where the bottom of the thing is that works. So if you get to the device, some devices have a native log format. They may send things in a CSV file. Others do JSON. Others do syslog. Some do syslog ng. Some do your grandmother's log format. I don't know. And what's strange is even if you look at the headers, and I think we talked about this once before in a podcast, was this strange case where the most common thing we use in all of the internet is IP. But I can probably pick up 7 different names for IPs in 7 different log file formats. And I'm sure it totally makes you crazy, Itai, because you're like, well, crap, I have to write a conversion from this thing to that thing. And that's just one example I can give folks that I would want, if I could change anything tomorrow, is like, just call IP, just call address or something. That would make such a huge difference. All of our metadata would be better. The alerts would be easier. We could use tools much better. There are so many things that would be positive if we could just synchronize on log formats.
I know many would agree. So, Itai, you were nodding your head all the way through that. What do you want to add?
Yeah. Well, actually, this is a pain for I think almost all of our customers who have a SIM, and in the SIM, we actually did this. We ran statistics on the number of fields for each and every log for an average customer. Can you guess how many fields? And usually, it's not a lot. It's IP, destination IP, source IP. The result was 1,200.
I was going to say 1,000. Yeah.
It's absolutely nuts because think about it. Like you have source IP spelled the full word, src underscore IP, dest IP, dst IP, and then dest IP. It's absolutely nuts. So one of the things that our customers love the most actually is the fact that we are doing all this mapping job and normalize the alert. Now, granted, we don't normalize every log, but when you have an alert, it's a standard normalized format that your team gets. This is one of the newer things that we have on our system for our SIM integration, and people love it because of that fact alone.
All right.
Yeah, XFF, right? You know, that's the same thing. XFF is a classic thing. Doesn't have the word IP anywhere in it. It's X forward header, right? But it's the IP you're supposed to use in most of the systems. So that's fantastic. We even use a different name.
By the way, I asked this very question I shot a video at Cisco Live a number of years ago where I was asking people, attendees, what would you like to change about your IT department? And the funniest answer I got was, I'd like to make them more attractive. Which is correct for you. I like that one. All right.
I'm right here, though, David. I'm right in front of you. You don't have to tell me in front of me. Like I got it.
You're not in my IT department.
Oh, I
so
see. Okay. I thought it was a pointed. Okay, I see. Okay.
All right. Shannon, your colleague asked this question. What is your least favorite type of alert to handle? Ty, you can answer this. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's the type of alert that has least amount of context. Usually you have those from endpoint solutions. They say something like, suspicious activity in this machine. Enjoy. That's, a lot of work needs to be done.
Yeah, and I'll be speaking for the ones that I heard about. So I think that's absolutely going to be top of the list for the people that are handling those alerts. The other one is probably phishing, right? It's that, because it could be something, it probably isn't, right? So they have to look at that alert so focused with the idea that 99.9% of it is going to be regular spam.
Well, also, I was asking a couple of CISOs because we were just discussing this on a show about, having that button that says, report this phish. And I said, of the percentage of the report this phish, how many of them were actually malicious? And we got numbers between 50 to 70%, which is great that it was, that people were reporting that much, activity happening. Atai?
So I think that it's important to separate between actually bad and requires action from the SOC, which are two completely different things.
Yeah. Good point to make. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because there are bad emails all the time, and they're trying to maybe solicit you or to click a link, but maybe it's clicking a link to buy some crappy thing online. It's not to breach your employer's organization. So on our statistics, like customer-wide, it ranges between 4 and 10% number of like real phish compared to what's reported.
All right, let me do this. I'm going to wrap up the show. I'm going to get final answers from both of you. So just remind you, click right this second if you have not registered for the Hacking Job Stagnation, because that's going to disappear in a second. Hey, big hand for Ty's company and Tezer for sponsoring this very episode of Super Cyber Friday. If you have not gone to that little poll that we have, and you'd like a nice warm handoff to Intezer to find out what the heck they're doing and learn more, go click the poll. We will make that warm handoff happen for you. Secondly, hold on. There we go. Starting soon, in about 95 minutes, we will be doing our Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review. We have Jason Elrod, who's the CISO of the Multicare Health System. That happens all the way over on YouTube. So just go to our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/CISO series, or just go to our site. You can find the link right there. And by the way, I don't know if you know, you can actually subscribe and subscribe to these specific episodes so you'll always be alerted. It's super fun. We get everyone involved just like this, incorporated in the week's news as well. All right, stick around for a meetup. It is now changing. Go ahead. Look at that. Look how fast Aaron is. He's on top of it. You can go ahead and click on that link. And this is what the Discord meetup looks like. In the lower left-hand corner, that's where your audio and video settings are. So make sure you click on that. If you would like to sponsor a Super Cyber Friday, email us at info@CISOseries.com. If you didn't click the link to register for next week's, not to worry. You can just go to CISOseries.com. We've got an events page where you can do that. All right. We have 5 minutes left, and I'm going to ask you first, Ittai, what is the topic we did not discuss that we should have been discussing on our show?
I think we kind of discussed it, but I think it has a lot of meat to it. Russ mentioned also before that, an important strategy would be to tune out alerts, and I absolutely agree. However, on the flip side, we want to make sure also to not tune low signal that might mean something. So, like, tune out as much as you can that would definitely not mean anything, and a lot of noise would come. But be careful not to shut down your detection tools that you paid a lot of money to alert you about anything anomalous.
Good point. Russ, last
And my
thought.
take would
What what didn't we talk about?
Yeah, my take for run books is probably the area that we don't talk enough about, period, but we didn't cover a lot of that today for the run book. Essentially, what the SOC's going to be able to respond to are the things that have been written down, created, or designed for them to be able to run. So the design of the documentation and the run books and the process you go through to be able to triage these things and get them into the right place, that to me is one of the most important aspects you can have. And in order to do that effectively, you got to get the information from the SOC themselves to describe what kind of content they need. Because to the person that's designing it for them, they may not think there's anything wrong with the methods they're using, where the SOC may be saying, oh, please change everything about the methods we're using. So it's a great point to go out to the teams that talk to your SOC and find out what is causing them trouble, and then design your run books to fix them.
Very, very good point. Just literally ask them. And hey, we're bringing Dutch back on again. First of all, I'm going to say kudos, a series of kudos. Kudos to you, Russ, for working so hard. He's in the middle of the storm and literally came on at the last second. Dutch, we asked, can you sub in? And then it looks like Russ is going to be possibly able to come on, and he was totally cool about it. He was there. He was going to be there for the full hour or not if Russ dropped off. So we have to thank Dutch 1,000 times for being there for us.
Thank you,
and
Dutch.
I want to also huge thanks to both Rich and Andrew working with Russ to get him online, because that was a Herculean effort. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. All right.
And thanks to the cyber team over here that got me set up and running. So thanks to them as well. Hopefully they're listening. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So many, many hands went into this.
Many hands.
many hands. So we appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. All right. So huge thanks to Intezer. Thank you, Ittai. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Dutch. What we're going to do right now is we are going to shut this sucker down, and we're going to all roll over to Discord. So if you have never joined us over on Discord, I'm talking exactly to you. You're the one I want to join us. Please join us over at Discord. We love this. We just spent a half hour talking about whatever the heck you want, and we'll have fun. We can continue talking about the SOC. It's all cool. Anyways, and also huge thanks to Aaron, our line producer, also Rich and Andrew. Thank you. Aaron, you can take us out.